Hello, everyone. My name is Timothy Brown. I am the treasurer for the National Optometric Foundation, and I am so glad that you are tuned in with us again tonight for another webinar for protecting the vision. And it's going to be a good one. It's going to be an impactful message today with my guest speaker, and I'll introduce who my guest speaker is going to be later in just a moment. First of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about who we are, the National Optometric Foundation. We are the financial arm for the National Optometric Association, and together we impact lives, we impact communities. We try to bring about positive changes for underserved minority communities and try to do free eye exams when we have the National Optometric Association conference each year. And if you haven't registered, we're going to be in Florida this year for the convention. So you can find that on our page as well. And we try to support students who are thinking about going to optometry school. We try to support those who are currently in optometry school because they want to pursue a career as an optometrist, and we try to support them financially there with scholarships. And we are so thankful for all of the great supporters and sponsors and companies who have come alongside the National Optometric Foundation and the National Optometric Association to provide finances, funds, so that we can have those scholarships to support our young minds who are thinking about becoming an optometrist as well. And we also try to educate the community, educate churches, educate schools, individually as optometrists, together as an organization about their vision, about different eye diseases. And that's why we do these webinars and we have doctors on sharing wisdom with our listening audience there so that you too can be informed about your vision, about your health, and make some positive changes if necessary, and make sure that you are getting your eye exam every single year. And we want you to know you can follow the National Optometric Foundation in various ways, and I'm going to tell you how. On our Facebook page, National Optometric Foundation, you can follow our page. Go ahead, go to the page today, like our page. We will post information on our page throughout the year about what we're doing. You can also go to our YouTube channel, the National Optometric Foundation, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also see our past webinars on the YouTube channel. You can also go to our website and follow us there, the nationaloptometricfoundation.com. On that website there, we wanted you to go ahead and subscribe to the website so that you can learn more about who we are, what we do. You can see the pictures as we go from location to location. And also, if you would like for us to continue to do the great things that we're doing in various communities, we ask that you be a donor, ask you to donate so that we can continue to do the great things that we're doing from week to week, month to month, and year to year. We have a cash app called Protecting the Vision, $ Protecting the Vision, and you can donate tonight. I challenge someone tonight to donate $25. If you donate $25 tonight, I will match your donation towards the National Optometric Foundation. And I thank you in advance. All right, let's get ready for the show now that we got that out of the way. This is going to be a great show. We're going to be hearing from a great speaker, a speaker that I've had the opportunity to get to know better, a speaker that I've had the opportunity to be able to work with, a speaker that I've known for over 20 years. I've known and seen her grow as an optometrist, and she's doing great work within our local community, and she's also doing some great things for people that you'll learn about later on. But this speaker for tonight has 2 children. She's the mother of 2. She is also the graduate at Pennsylvania College of Optometry at Salus University. She's a native of Camden, South Carolina. She is the owner at Insight Family Eye Care in Augusta, Georgia. It is the only Black private practice in Augusta, Georgia. And Augusta, Georgia is the 2nd largest city in Georgia. So that's to be proud of there. She also she's a mobile notary. She helped a lot of people with their legal documents such as wills, living wills, contracts, apostilles, and she's also into speaking at various churches and schools within the community, educating adults and children about their vision. And she's just doing great work, and she's going to continue to grow. She's also doing weddings. So if someone want to get married, she's also in position to marry. She's married some people there as well. So she's doing a lot of great things. And I think in her future, there may be a book, but we don't know. We'll find out later. But you guys go ahead and let's welcome Dr. Sharita Brown to the webinar here tonight. We're so glad to have you on as our guest speaker tonight, speaking to us there. So thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. First, I want to say thank you to my husband, Mr. Dr. Brown, as well as thank you to the NOF for allowing me to come on this evening and present to you about vision and learning, something that is very near and dear to my heart. So I love talking about this topic, and I look forward to sharing with you about this topic as well.
Excellent, excellent. We look forward to hearing from you. I want our listening audience to know this is the time for you to go ahead and grab your favorite drink, get you some popcorn, have a seat, go ahead and text this to your family and friends so that they can tune in and learn as well, because Dr. Brown is about to unpack a lot of great information about your eyes and things that I bet you'll find out you did not realize there. It's more than just getting a pair of glasses, getting some contacts and putting them on your eyes there. It's a little more in depth than that. So you're going to learn some things this evening, and I'm excited to have her on speaking to us about this. And we'll also take questions. So if you're burning with a question related to this topic there about your eyes, please feel free to type that in the comment section, whether you're tuning in with us on Facebook or you're on YouTube, and we'll try to get to your questions before the end of the show as well. Okay. Dr. Brown, thank you for speaking today with us on vision and learning. I know you're going to have a lot of great information, so I'm going to kind of go in the background and let you go ahead and start your presentation and take over the show, and we'll go ahead and pull up her intro slide there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And as my husband mentioned, I'm the owner of Insight Family Eye Care here in Augusta, Georgia. One of the main reasons I decided to open this office is because I was seeing so many children whose learning was being impacted by their vision, and I wanted a way to be able to help more individuals. So that is what prompted me to even open up my office. I'm happy to say that this month marks our seven-year anniversary of being open. So we are really excited about that. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the presentation because I know I have a lot of information to share on today. So next slide, please. All right, so the first thing I want you to know is that 80% of learning comes from vision. 80%. Can you believe that? 80% of learning comes from vision. And that is why vision is so important, and why if your vision is not working properly, or a child's vision is not working properly, it can definitely impact their learning, their reading, different skills that they are supposed to be able to achieve when they're in school. Next slide, please. Vision is also your dominant sense. Now, what do I mean by that? Since 80% of learning comes from your vision, it is your dominant sense. It actually overrides some of your other senses, like your sense of touch, as well as like your hearing as well. And you can relate to this probably if you ever watched a movie where the picture and the sound was not lined up. It's like, I know for me personally, I cannot sit and watch a movie like that. I either have to put my head down or something. But vision is your dominant sense. And because of that, it'll override some of your other senses just because it is just that powerful. And that's why us as optometrists, we have a very unique skill and a very unique opportunity, because we can shift the way people view the world by some of the tools that we possess. And with that, we can impact different people as well as children so that they can function in their everyday world a little bit better. Next slide, please. All right. So what is good vision? I always like to ask this question whenever I'm doing a presentation. And even though I can't get feedback from the audience today, I will tell you the two common answers that I typically get. Most people, when I ask this question, will tell me that good vision is 20/20 vision, or they will tell me good vision means that you don't need glasses. However, today I am going to be showing you what that vision is so much more than good vision, or excuse me, 20/20. Next slide, please. All right, so our motto at our office is that great vision goes beyond 20/20. The reason why that is my motto, as I mentioned before, because I saw so many kids struggling with school, that was the primary reason that I opened my office. But there are over 18 visual skills that you use on a daily basis. 20/20, or being able to see 20/20, that particular skill is just one out of those 18. So imagine if you went to your doctor's office and all they did was take your weight, but they didn't take your height. They didn't measure your height, or they didn't take your blood pressure. And they just used that one measurement to determine whether or not you were healthy or not. It's an incomplete picture. And that's why just having 20/20 vision, if you're not assessing some of the other visual skills that everyone possesses or should possess, you are missing out on so much. So great vision definitely goes beyond 20/20. Next slide, please. All right, so today what we will be talking about is a few of the different visual skills. I will not cover all 18, but we are going to cover a good bit of them. We're going to cover visual acuity, eye tracking, eye focusing, eye-hand coordination, and my favorite, which is visual perception. So next slide, please. And you can advance to the next one. So visual acuity. What is visual acuity? That is just a fancy word for what everybody associates vision with. It's like when you go to the doctor's office, or even if you go to like your primary care physician's office, or you take your child to their pediatrician's office, is what can you see on that chart? So visual acuity is your ability to see clearly. It is commonly tested at distance. However, you must be able to see clearly at all distances. So it's important for you to be able to see far away, up close, and everywhere in between. But that is what visual acuity is. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about vision screenings versus vision exams, because this is a common myth that we encounter on a day-to-day basis as optometrists. Some people feel that if they take their child to the pediatrician, or if they had their eyes checked at school by the school nurse, or even if you had your vision checked at like your workplace or by your primary care doctor, that you had a vision exam. That is not a vision exam. That is a vision screening. And vision screenings have found to miss at least 50% of vision problems. 50%. Some studies show that it's even higher, the number of vision problems that are missed by vision screenings. And another fun fact that I don't have here is, out of those 50% of people who are actually detected to have some problem, about half of them never even follow up to see what the issue is. So that's why we are advocates for making sure you get an eye exam every year, because vision screenings can miss so many different things. And remember, going back to what I told you, it's because oftentimes we're just looking at that one visual skill. We're not looking at other factors that can impact our vision. Next slide, please. All right, so basically when you go to get an eye exam, a routine eye exam, it's going to test the health of your eyes as well as your need for glasses. We want to make sure your eyes are healthy, because it doesn't matter if we give you a pair of glasses that gets you seeing well, if we find out that you have some type of sight-threatening condition or sight-threatening disease. So we want you to get a full or comprehensive eye exam. So one, we can make sure your eyes are nice and healthy. And then also, once we determine that your eyes are healthy, we can see if you could benefit from glasses. Now, also keep in mind, 1 in 10 children has a vision issue that will affect their learning. So that is about 10%. And next slide, please. And this is why I say vision is more than 20/20. It's useless to have 20/20 vision if you are seeing double. It doesn't make any sense because now you have another issue. I often like to share this slide here. It says most children have no idea how they are supposed to see. So when words look like this, they assume everyone sees the same way they do. Imagine how frustrating that would be. And I put this here because oftentimes parents won't realize that their child has a vision issue because one, sometimes the child is too young to even know to complain. They don't know that they should be seeing anything different because that is the way they see has been the way they've seen all their life. So they don't know that there's I hate to say a wrong way and a right way, but a good way and a better way. That is just their way of seeing. And no one knows how each other sees unless you actually go to an eye doctor and get your vision checked to see what is your level of sight, what can you see, and to make sure everything is okay. Next slide, please. Now, I don't know how well you can see this slide. I have this up in my office here, but basically what it does, what it's showing is there are 4 different examples. And it says the same thing. It says a child that sees like this can pass a vision screening. The first one, the picture is blurry because it's representing 20/30 vision. And 20/30 vision, if you could see it clearly, it's blurry. And it might even be giving some people a headache. So imagine if a child had to sit like this in class with 20/30 vision. But believe it or not, oftentimes 20/30 vision is considered passing for a lot of the vision screenings that are conducted at schools or at daycares and things of that nature. Now, the next example that is listed up there is an example of someone who sees double. The third example is of a child who has an eye tracking issue, meaning their eyes don't focus and follow along like it's supposed to. So it looks like the words are swimming or moving on the page. Someone who sees like that can pass a vision screening. And the final one is where the words are all jumbled up and it's simulating someone with dyslexia. And they're saying someone who has dyslexia can pass a vision screening. So now I hope this helps you to see why vision screenings can miss up to at least 50% of vision issues that children are having on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. And you can skip to the next one too. All right, so the first skill that we are going to talk about is called eye tracking. This is key and essential for reading and writing, and it is your ability to keep your eyes on a target. Now, not only do you have to keep your eyes on the target, but you also have to be able to follow a moving target. So the reason why this is essential for reading and writing is because when you're reading, your eyes are moving from one point to the next, from one word to another, or one target to the next target. And when you're writing, you have to be able to follow along because you're looking at what you're writing or what you're tracing and or drawing in that nature. And you have to be able to do that. And the pictures just show some examples of children who don't have good writing skills. And we test for this, or we do a screening for this, I should say, when I do my exams. And just from doing a screening and seeing how the child's eyes move during their eye exam, I can tell what child might struggle with reading, what child might have bad handwriting without even seeing any of their handwriting samples. And usually at this point, I'll ask the parent, does this child struggle with reading and learning? Does this child have issues with their handwriting and with their spacing? And oftentimes the parent will say yes. And all of that can be detected by just seeing how their eyes are moving. Next slide, please. And you can advance to the next one. All right, eye focusing. This is your ability to maintain clear vision when changing distances, but it is also the ability to do this quickly and accurately. This is when a child has to copy down things from the board. So when you're copying down stuff from the board, first you have to look at the stuff far away, then you have to look at the stuff up close and write it down on your paper. So imagine if you tried to look at something far away, it was blurry, you had to focus your eyes and get it in focus and everything. Now, once you got it in focus, you had to switch focus and look at your paper. But then when you go to look at your paper, it's blurry again. So you make your eyes kind of readjust and refocus. And then once you get it focused for you to write your sentence, now the child has forgotten what they even copied. Now, if they also have an eye tracking problem, when they go to look back at the board, not only do they have to try and get it back in focus, but they may have lost their place because their eyes are not tracking or focusing or following along like they're supposed to be. So imagine how frustrating that could be as a child if you're trying to copy down things from the board, but it's blurry, or you keep losing your place. And by the time you get it back in focus, you forgot what you were even supposed to be writing. So these kids often may have a harder time completing their schoolwork or their assignments in a timely manner just because they have eye focusing issues. They may also get fatigued after a long day of doing schoolwork or homework and things of that nature. So those are just some things to be aware of when it comes to eye focusing. Next, we're going to be talking about eye teaming. And you can advance the slide there you go. All right, so eye teaming is one of the common ones that most people think you might need glasses if your eyes are not lined up or focusing like you're supposed to. But it goes a little bit further than that. Like the obvious signs are if the eyes are not coordinated, they both are not pointing in the same direction. But because of that, because your eyes are not in alignment, this can affect your depth perception or your 3D vision. So your eyes must work together as a team. They must be functioning properly. Next slide, please. Now, as I mentioned, the obvious signs is if you had an eye turn, but there are some unnoticeable signs that might also occur and can affect eye teaming. This is where you have reduced vision in one or both eyes. These are some of the children that are commonly overlooked or missed during vision assessments or vision screenings. Why? Because one eye sees great, but the other eye is blurry. So that tells you they are not working as a team because one eye is focused, but the other one is out of focus or very blurry. And because of that, that will also affect their depth perception and how well their eyes work together. And they don't always have an obvious eye turn. So you won't know until they actually have an eye exam where we see what each individual eye is able to see. And next slide, please. Now, with these kids who do have eye teaming issues, I usually say, and this is a generalization, they either tend to be very clumsy and uncoordinated just because their eyes lack the good depth perception or that good 3D vision, or they tend to be they can tend to be daredevils, meaning this is the kid who climbs up on something that's 8 foot tall and then they jump off of it because to them, because they're lacking good depth perception, it might only look like 2 feet or 1 feet. It doesn't look that high. So you'll see them way up high on something and jump off. So they can be daredevils and taking all kinds of risks, or they can be very, very clumsy and tend to bump into stuff. All right. And you can advance it one more. Next, we're going to talk about eye-hand coordination. And this is basically utilizing vision to direct action. This is often used in sports. It's also often used in handwriting and drawing. Now, we're talking about each of these skills individually, but please keep in mind all of these skills are working together in coordination. Even you looking at me now, you are using eye focusing, you are using eye teaming, you are using your visual acuity. All these things are working hand in hand for you to have good, single, clear vision. So they don't work in isolation. They work in a coordinated fashion for everything to come together. So if you're lacking in one skill, it throws off the other skills as well. Now, next, we're going to be talking about visual perception. And visual perception is my favorite just because it covers so many different skills. Now, I will say this about the previous skills. Those skills that we just discussed, I consider those the basics, the building blocks or the foundation. Those are like they're gathering the information. Visual perceptual skills is what is the brain doing with the information that was gathered? How is it processing? So I often tell my parents of the children that come in that if there's junk coming in, the brain is junk coming out because the brain has faulty information or bad information that it is processing just because the basic skills are affected. But visual perception is how the brain is processing that visual information, and it's organizing images that are seen. An example of this is organizing words and letters on a page, because if you really think about it, what is a paragraph? A paragraph is just a group of sentences. What is a sentence? A sentence is just a group of words. What is a word? A word is just a group of letters organized in a certain way for us to be able to make sense of it. Visual perception is also recognizing what is seen. It's telling the difference between a B and a D. And we are going to be talking about that a little bit more as well. Visual perception is also understanding what is seen. Can you make sense of what you're seeing, like reading comprehension? Also, it's recalling or remembering what is seen. Can you retain the information that you've just been presented with? So all of that is visual perception, and we're going to touch upon a few of those as well. So hopefully this helps reiterate the fact, or helps you to better see why 80% of learning comes from vision, and it goes so much more beyond just having that 20/20 vision. All right, next slide, please. And you can advance it one more. So two more, I'm sorry. The first skill we're going to talk about is visual memory. Now, this is your ability to store, record, and retrieve information. It allows us to learn and later recall what was learned. So being able to remember a face or a certain object, that kind of thing. And there are activities, there are tests that we can do to test a child's visual memory. Now, we don't typically do these types of assessments in a regular or comprehensive eye exam. It's usually done in a more extensive type of exam, which is like a vision therapy evaluation, to see how we can better help and better develop the skills, that some of these skills that the child is lacking. Next, we're going to talk about sequential memory, and you can advance it 2 slides. So with sequential memory, it's very similar to visual memory because it still allows us to store and retrieve information when necessary or useful, but it helps us remember and recognize people, places that we have been, or a series of events, equations, and procedures. This is commonly used in spelling, or being able to remember your phone number or your address. So these are skills that children, especially in kindergarten and first grade, are starting to learn, and that is the sequential memory. And next slide, please. Here is an example of sequential memory or sequential visual memory. So it's asking, can you remember the order of the planets without looking? That is a sequential visual memory skill. So vision touches so many different aspects of learning. All right, next slide, and you can advance it by 2. Form constancy. This is one of the common topics that I get asked about all the time. And informed constancy allows us to distinguish one object from another similar object. It is the ability to tell the difference between the letter B and D. And I have parents coming in because they ask me, does my child have dyslexia because they keep reversing their B's and D's? There are so many different skills that are going into that. First, you got to know your left from your right, because what is the difference between a B and a D? All it is a circle with a line. One has the line on the right side, one has the line on the left side, okay? Now, this can be a hard concept for a child to grasp, because up until they started school, we have told them that an object is always the same, no matter what orientation it is in. And I have a cup here. I don't know how well you can see my cup. This is a cup. If I turn it this way, it's still a cup. If I was to hold it sideways, it's a cup. I can't do it because I have stuff in it. If I flipped it upside down, it's a cup. So all before, we've been telling children, like, no matter how you flip this is always going to be a chair. This is always going to be a phone. This is always going to be a pencil, no matter what orientation it's in. And now we start teaching them letters. And it's like, well, when you put the line on this side of the circle, it's a D. But when you put the line on this side of the circle, it's a B. And guess what? When you flip the circle to the top and put the line on this side, it's a Q. And now when you put it on this side, it's a P. And guess what? Sometimes when you put the line on this side, it's actually a number 9. And that can be very confusing for some kids to grasp and to understand. So they don't necessarily have dyslexia. They might have some issues with form constancy. But also, going back to the eye tracking skills, if their eyes are not tracking and following along on the page like they're supposed to, we don't know how they are approaching it. Are they actually approaching it from left to right, or are they going backwards from right to left? And that can throw some things off. But form constancy is, or forms that are similar in shape, but they are very different in meaning. And that is what a lot of the letters and the numbers are when the children start school. It is also the ability to see and distinguish these differences. All right, next slide, please. This is an example of form constancy. This is a game that we usually play, and it's a game that you can actually get. It's called Spotted if you want to play it with your kids. But in the actual diagrams, there's usually a game that you play, the two circles. In each of the two circles, you will find an object that matches it, and it's trying to see how quickly can you find the object that is the same in both circles. All right, next slide, please, and you can advance it. All right, figure ground. Now, this allows us to distinguish, segregate, isolate, or find an object or stimuli in varying environments. This includes faces, figures, objects, landscapes, and letters or numbers. This helps to organize the information we see in our environment. Now, commonly, a child who has an issue with figure ground, the example I would use is a parent tells little Johnny to go upstairs and get their red jacket from their closet. Little Johnny goes upstairs. He's up there for 5 minutes, comes back down. He says, "Mom, I can't find my red jacket." Mom says, "Johnny, I know your jacket is up there. Go upstairs, get your red jacket." He goes up there again, can't find his jacket, comes back down, and Mom is like, "If I have to go up there and get your red jacket, you're going to be in trouble." But sometimes, because that red jacket is in the closet with all those different clothes, all those different color clothes, all the different sizes of clothes, it's hard for them to distinguish or find the right object from everything else. It's visually confusing for the child. And I jokingly say, I think a lot of men have that problem, because sometimes when I ask my husband to find something, he can't find it, but I can readily go to it. But that's a topic for another day. All right, next slide, please. This is an example of figure ground. You used to do this all the time. Where's Waldo puzzles are a good example of figure ground activities. Also, the highlight magazines where you're trying to find the hidden pictures within the bigger picture. Both of these are examples of figure ground, as well as activities that you can do with your children to help them. Oftentimes, I will say this, a lot of the things that kids are lacking is just from the lack of exposure to them. A lot of kids I talk to today, they have no idea who Where's Waldo is, or they don't have any experience with doing some of the highlights puzzles and doing these types of activities. So they haven't even been exposed to these different things to be able to even develop the visual skills that they need for reading and learning and just natural activities that we are doing on a day-to-day basis. All right, next slide, please. All right, spatial relationships. So spatial relationships, this allows us to process our visual environment and around us and the location of objects in respect to ourselves. So part of vision is knowing, where am I and where is it? So you have to be aware of your own body and knowing this is my left hand, this is my right hand, that kind of thing, as well as knowing what is like another person's left hand, right hand, that kind of thing. Where am I and where is it? Games that we used to play, or I used to play as a kid, that work on spatial relationships is like red light, green light. So you're running, trying to get to the person or whatever. You have to be able to judge that spatial relationship, how close you are from that person. Another game or another activity is Mother May I. Same kind of thing. You're trying to get to the mother by saying, and you have to guess, like, can I take 5 big steps, or can I take 10 baby steps? And you have to kind of figure out how many steps is it going to take for me to get to the person who's playing the mother. So those are some examples of spatial relationships. All right, next slide, please. All right, this is an example. It's just asking which building is closer. So these are a lot of the optical illusions that you might see on the internet or on different places that you can do as well. And next slide, please. Visual closure. So this allows us to detect, differentiate, select, and draw conclusions and understand information when only given certain pieces of information rather than the entire account or story or explanation. And there's a common saying right about now is like, you got to be able to read the room. Can you read the room? Can you make some inferences? Can you draw some conclusions based off of the things that you are seeing? So visual closure is the ability to fill in the gaps. So some examples of this, if the child is young, they can do puzzles. So puzzles is where you have to try and figure out what needs to go in this particular place. As the child gets older, like third, fourth, and fifth grade, this is an example when they have to make story inferences. Kind of like Jill went outside with her sweater on, and Jill noticed that it was raining. She went back inside because she forgot something. What do you think Jill forgot? Do you think she forgot her book? Do you think she forgot her umbrella? Do you think she forgot her hair bow? And you have to make story inferences based off of not having the complete information, but from context clues or other clues to be able to fill in the gap there. Also, like in middle school, is being able to make analogies, like an apple is a fruit, so a daisy is a flower. You have to be able to do that. In high school, it's like writing papers about characters and stuff like that. Like if you were Hercules, how do you think you would have behaved? Or if you were Romeo and Juliet, well, how do you think you would have responded to this? So this is how they are using those type of skills in their everyday, in their learning, and applying it to their daily activities. Next slide, please. All right, this is an example of visual closure. I don't know if you can see it. If anyone can tell what is in this picture, I'm going to go ahead and give it away, but it's actually a dog. So I don't know how many people can actually see the dog in the picture, but there is a dog there. All right, next slide, please. Visual discrimination. So all of the previous 6 skills that we talked about, all of these incorporate visual discrimination, or visual discrimination is used in some form or fashion with it. And this is just the ability to identify details, seeing items, likes, and differences in shape, color, position, and orientation. So that is what visual discrimination is. Next slide, please. And here is an example. Same thing. These are found in highlights books. It's like 2 similar pictures, but you have to find what is different in the picture. And they'll have so many, like, hey, find 5 things that are different out of all these pictures. So this is another activity you can do with your child to help develop some of their visual skills. Next slide, please. All right, signs that your child may have a vision issue. We're going to talk about it really quickly. And you can go to the next slide. All right, so if your child blinks or squints a lot, that could be an indication that they might have a vision issue. Sometimes when they're blinking, it's kind of like they're trying to reset or restart their visual system. Just like when something goes wrong with our computer, what do? We turn it off. We shut it off and try to reboot it. So sometimes the blinking will kind of re-trigger or refresh the visual system, or they're trying to refresh the visual system. Also, if you see them squinting a lot, that could indicate that they have a visual issue. Another thing is if they tilt their head, and if they tilt their head up or down, or always are like looking up or even to the side or turning their head to the side, that could be a sign of a visual issue. If they close an eye, like if they go out in the sun and they're always closing an eye, or you tell them to look at something and they unconsciously end up closing an eye, then that could be a sign that they might have a visual issue. If they cover an eye. Now, I always say this will not be obvious. Like the child won't be walking around with their eye covered like this. Usually what will happen is if they're reading or something like that, or writing, they usually will put their head on their arm or something like that and block off one eye. And so that and this could mean that they might be seeing double. That's why they're closing the eye or covering an eye. Or sometimes the boys, they'll have their hair with over one eye. It is not necessarily, it could be the style, but it's not always necessarily the style. But they know by having that hair over one eye, it helps block or cover an eye. So those are some things that you might want to look for. If they skip or read lines. So if you have your child read aloud to you and you find that they keep skipping over words or rereading the same line or sentence over and over, this could be a sign of a visual issue. Also, if they use their finger when reading, this could also be another indication. Now, this is considered normal up until a certain point. But if your child is 8 or above, they should not be using their finger when reading. If so, that is a sign of a visual issue. Also, it might not necessarily be their finger if they're using a ruler or some type of paper, or I've even seen where they take their arm or their hand and try and block off certain stuff to help keep their place. That could be a sign that they're having a vision issue. Next slide, please. All right, some more signs is if they have poor reading comprehension. Like, you know, your child knows all their words. When you do your sight words and stuff like that, they call them out. When they do their vocabulary, they call out the words. But when it's time to put it all together into a sentence, they don't really understand. It's poor reading comprehension. Also, if it takes them a long time to complete schoolwork or homework, this might be a sign of a visual issue. Now, we talked about this too when it came to copying down stuff from the board. So they might, if they're having trouble focusing, this can cause them to take longer when it comes to doing schoolwork and homework. Also, if they have a short attention span when doing near tasks. Sometimes these kids are being labeled as lazy, but as you can see from some of the previous examples where some of the print is double and things of that nature, who wants to look at something like that for long periods of time? Your eyes may start hurting, your head may start hurting. You're not going to want to continue to do those types of things. So you're going to have a short attention span. Also, they might be labeled as a behavioral issue because if they know they can't see well or they know they can't read it well, they might start playing with little Johnny who's sitting beside them or, tapping on his desk and different things like that. And now they're being called out because they're disrupting the class when they might very well have a visual issue because they can't focus for long periods of time just because they can't see. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when it comes to children with ADD and ADHD. If they rub their eyes a lot or they rub their head a lot when doing near tasks, oftentimes, or if they get headaches as well. And these kind of go hand in hand because if the child is not of an age to even know what a headache is, they're not going to know to complain. Just like I said before, no child is really going to say, oh, this is, I can't see well necessarily, especially when they're younger, because they don't know there's any other way to see. And sometimes the kids won't say, oh, my head hurts or I have a headache, but you might see them rubbing their eyes or rubbing their head because things are blurry or their eyes feel tired or strained. All right, next slide, please. Now, what can you do to help your child's visual development? I always want you to feel empowered. I don't want to give you a list of problems and you be like, well, now what? What can I do? So I want you to feel empowered and have a plan of action for the steps you need to take if you see these signs in your child or in someone else's child or even your grandchild or someone's grandchild. Next slide, please. All right. So what you can do is first and foremost, get annual eye exams. You want to find a pediatric or developmental optometrist. And I will say this, and I put pediatric, developmental, or behavioral optometrist in your area. I'm considered a pediatric optometrist just because I see a lot of children. But another name that could be assigned to me is a developmental optometrist because I'm looking at how the visual system is developing. Has it developed like it's supposed to? Also, the optometrist who specializes in these kinds of things might be labeled as a behavioral optometrist. The reason why is because we're looking at the behavior of the child. I always tell the parents too, I'm trying to see how the child is responding. When I put the glasses on their face, do they seem more relaxed? Do they seem more attentive? That kind of thing. Parents, sometimes we see a lot of kids there and some of the kids have special needs or different different things that they are dealing with as well. And we'll often get kids who come into our office and they are touching everything. Now that could drive a lot of people crazy, but I tell the parent, don't worry about it. That gives me a sign that their visual system may not be working as well as possible, because what I mentioned in the very beginning, vision is supposed to be your dominant sense. It overrides all your other senses. So if the vision is not working properly, they're going to rely on other senses, like their sense of touch. So this is the child who touches everything. You come in with certain clothes on. They might want to rub your shirt or rub your pants and that kind of stuff, because they can tell something is different, but they can't quite know what it is because their vision is not giving them the information they need. So they want to touch it and see, does this match up with what I'm seeing? Because what I'm seeing is a little bit different. So when you're looking for an optometrist to help or assist you, you want to find someone who's either a pediatric optometrist, a developmental optometrist, or a behavioral optometrist who specializes in these kinds of things. We can do eye exams, or at my office, I do eye exams on children as young as 6 months of age. And eye exams, I highly recommend, this is my personal opinion, I highly recommend eye exams for children with ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, or autism. The reason why ADD, ADHD, and dyslexia, if your child has not had an eye exam and they've been given these diagnoses, something may have been overlooked. These diagnoses are supposed to be a diagnosis of exclusion. And I can't tell you the number of kids I see who have been diagnosed with ADD and ADHD, and they're coming to me for their first eye exam, and I'm picking up stuff that tells me that their vision is not working like it's supposed to. And I always tell the parent, if their eyes are all over the place because they can't track and they can't focus, guess what? Their body is going to be all over the place too, and they're not going to be able to pay attention and focus, because vision is your dominant sense. It leads and guides you in everything that you do. So if you have children who have these types of conditions, you definitely want to get their eyes checked, preferably by someone who specializes in being able to identify these types of things. Now, some other stuff you can do with your child is play developmental games with your children. So we mentioned the puzzles. You can also play games like I Spy. I know this probably seems like retro stuff or retro games to play. And a lot of those games, we didn't realize it, or unbeknownst to us, they were helping to develop and cultivate our visual skills. And since then, they've been taken out of a lot of the classrooms, and we've been pushing kids to read and learn, but we've been skipping over some steps. Some of these steps are key and important for their visual system to develop like it's supposed to. We're having the kids work with building blocks, doing the hidden pictures. All of those things kind of help. We talked about Mother May I, red light, green light. And I mentioned the hokey pokey that helps you to help you to be coordinated, helps you to learn your left and your right. And if your kids don't want to do the hokey pokey, there's other things you can do. You can do the cha-cha slide. You can do the Cupid shuffle. You can make it fun and interactive for your kids so that you're helping to build some of the visual skills that they need. All right, next slide, please. And I think that might, okay, I think this might be close to the last slide. So other things you can do to aid your child is to play outside. Let them get exercise. Vitamin D from the sun slows the progression of nearsightedness. A lot of the things, like I said, kids are more sedentary. They're inside, but a lot of skills, visual skills, can develop just from playing, like going out on the swings and pushing your child on the swings. I always tell parents, if you go out and play with your child on the swing, you want to push them and you want to stand in front of them, because it teaches their eyes how to look out and how to look in, how to look out and how to look in as they're focusing on a target. I asked one parent who had came into my office, and she said, hey, my child, she actually, when she gets on the swing, she doesn't really swing. She just kind of turns back and forth and stuff like that, but she never swings in and out. And come to find out, we detected that she had a visual issue. Sometimes kids, they'll struggle with riding a bike. It could be associated with some visual issues or some developmental issues that we might be able to address. Other things you can do is to limit screen time. Now, I always say everything in moderation, because excessive near activities can contribute to nearsightedness. So you can limit screen time But oftentimes you'll say, well, go read a book. But I always tell the parent, when you're doing an up close task, is making the eyes good for up close, not good for far away. One of the reasons a lot of kids are in glasses more is because a lot more are focusing up close. When I was growing up, the kids that were in glasses were called bookworms. Why? Because we were always in a book. Now that book has been replaced by a phone and a tablet. So that's why I say everything in moderation. Although reading a book does teach certain visual skills, being able to look from point to point and things of that nature, you still want everything in moderation. The other thing I would mention, and it kind of goes without saying, is just make sure you're eating healthy. You want to make sure these kids aren't hyped up on sugar and being overstimulated. You want to be sensitive to certain dyes and coloring and food that cause allergic reactions and can be impacting your children as well as impacting their vision. All right, next slide. And I think this, oh yes. So hopefully now you will see why I say great vision goes beyond 2020. There are so many skills that you are putting into play. Even as you're watching me now, you probably have used at least 10 different visual skills unbeknownst to you that help you to be able to see me and enjoy the content that I'm presenting to you today. All right, next slide. Yeah, and that is it. Thank you so much to the NOF for even having me to come out and to speak with everyone. I hope someone has learned something that will help benefit them and benefit a child or someone you know who might have a visual issue that could be impacting their reading, their learning, and their life. Because sometimes these kids, they'll struggle in school and they'll think that they're not smart. And they are very smart. They are very intelligent. Their vision is just getting in the way. And when you can build that kid's confidence, they just take off and soar, and they can accomplish so many different things. So I truly hope this was helpful.
Absolutely. I am without a doubt that the information presented tonight is going to be helpful to those who are listening and those who are going to catch this information later, because a lot of people don't realize that 80% of learning comes from vision, and how the teaming and tracking and focusing and hand coordination all play a role in your child having good vision, you know. And I think it also takes a special optometrist. Not everybody can see children, and I don't think you highlighted that many optometrists locally send children to your office to see you, because it takes someone who's going to slow down, have patience, because children do. They come into the office, they're touching everything. And, you know, sometimes I wonder if it's a vision problem or a mama need to talk to them before they leave home. But you said it may be vision. So we're going to leave it at that. But anyway, it takes a special optometrist to see children. And you have been doing an outstanding job in the community throughout the city of Augusta. I know that people travel from different cities to see you. I know that people have come to the office and said that they were recommended by a group that they're in on Facebook, social media, to you because you're good with children. I know that people have come to the office saying that, hey, the doctor down the road won't see children, but they did give us your information, and that's why we're here. So people come to see you for different reasons, and that says a lot about who you are and how you're able to work with children and how you're able to communicate. That's the other thing, a special optometrist that can communicate with the parents and tell them about your findings and the things that they may have noticed about their child, but they didn't understand it, you know. So kudos to you on being that pillar in the community for pediatrics there. You know, I know you see adults as well, but definitely the children, you know, that you're seeing, you know, that's a great thing. Many times there were questions about, hey, children are hyperactive, they're on medications for their hyperactivities, and could that possibly be because they can't see as well, or they can't process information as well, and therefore their behavior, you know, is not where it would be, where people would call normal. But you touched upon that, with ADD and ADHD, as well there. So thank you for
Yes, and I
highlighting.
forgot. Well, I will say this. I forgot to mention. Yes, have them checked because we want to make sure. I always say this: if your child is under the age of 7 and they've been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, that could very well just be normal behavior of somebody who is under the age of 7. So just be an advocate for your child. Now, some of y'all do know your child might have the label of ADD, ADHD, but they really need the label of just BAD, and that, and they might just need a little guidance from the parent and everything too. So be mindful of that. I'm not oblivious to that fact as well, that everybody has labeled, but I don't want the kids to be mislabeled either. And sometimes they're being mislabeled as ADD and ADHD, or even lazy, like they don't try or they're not working hard enough. So just be mindful. I want parents, teachers to be mindful of the things that they say as well, because they might be working really, really hard to do the things, and they just can't accomplish it because their vision is getting in the way. Like I said, a common example of that is just trying to copy down stuff from the board. If every time you try and copy down stuff from the board, you have to get it in focus, then try to regroup and find your place. And then by the time you do all that and you try and write it down on the paper, you've forgotten what you need to do, and you have to keep starting over again and again. That's frustrating for a child. And keep in mind, they can't always process these emotions. So they're going to shut down. They might have a bad moment or a bad day, just like us, because they're dealing with some tough issues and tough problems that we can't physically see, but they're dealing with and everything.
Yes, and parents, it's important for you to realize, your child may be falling behind in school because they are struggling with trying to be able to process visual information, trying to find that clarity, learning the difference between clear and blurry, So it's important that you take your child to an optometrist, get their eyes examined, not just get checked for glasses or contacts, but actually get a health exam, get a more in-depth eye exam by someone who specializes in pediatrics, someone who is a developmental optometrist. They are pediatric optometrists. It's important that someone's working with your child early in life versus later in life there, and that you do not delay getting the eye exam done, So we want to encourage you guys to go and get eyes examined, get your eyes examined, get your children's eyes examined. And that's why we do these webinars. We want to help protect the vision. We don't want something to keep your child from being the best that they can be in school there. We want them to excel in school, and we want them to achieve and be successful in life. And they could be struggling because of their vision there. So I hope that you guys have gathered some great information from Dr. Sharita Brown's presentation tonight. This webinar has been impactful. It is full of information. So I don't want you to let this webinar just sit. I want you to actually share from our YouTube channel with groups that you may be in, with people in your family, so that they are informed and educated on this topic, as well as our other topics. Keep joining us every third Monday of the month there, so that we will have a different topic to present to our communities and educate them. Dr. Brown, thank you again for being on this webinar, sharing with us about vision and learning. It's been great. The information has been, impactful. I believe a lot of people have taken in a lot that you said tonight, and more we'll hear about this or catch it on the replay there as well there. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with the community again, and keep being a trailblazer in the city of Augusta, Georgia at Insight Family Eye Care. And if you have other social media platforms that you may be on, now would be the time for you to go ahead and share that with our listening audience.
I do have other social media platforms. I'm not going to mention them at this particular time, just because I do want to mention, and I know we got to wrap up in just a few moments. I did not mention or go into detail about how we can help kids with these particular issues. So also at our office, we do something called vision therapy, where we retrain the eyes and retrain the brains. So just because that child may have a diagnosis, or we might discover that they have an eye tracking problem or an eye teaming problem, we can fix it. It's not usually fixed through glasses, but it is fixed through something called vision therapy, where we work one-on-one with them for several months to get the problem solved, and so that they can excel in school. And I've seen many kids where, after being behind 2 and 3 grade levels, after working with them for 4 to 5 months, they will shoot up 5 and 6 reading levels in terms of their vision, just because of the skills that we worked on.
That's incredible, guys. Vision therapy. You may not have heard of it before, but we want to encourage you to embrace that. That's an option for your child if they are struggling with their vision therapy at Insight Family Eye Care. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for sharing that as well. Yes, that's a big part of your office there as well. So we thank you again for being a community leader. We thank you for all that you continue to pour into the community. You guys don't know, but Dr. Brown spent a lot of time for the mothers. She had a special day on Friday for all the mothers who came in. There was a massage therapist there giving them free full body massages there, and they had the opportunity to get balloons, opportunity to enter into for a gift card to Target, and also gift cards for a manicure, a pedicure, and another full body massage later. And we actually had a winner that came into the office to receive that. So you guys follow on the Facebook page, Insight Family Eye Care, so that you will be in tune to the next community activity that Dr. Brown continues to do for our local community. So thank you again, Dr. Brown. Didn't want to leave this webinar without giving you those kudos, because that was something that people have never seen before at an eye doctor's office.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I love to give back. So that's just a small way to show my appreciation to my patients, as well as to all the moms out there.
All right. Thank you again. We're going to go ahead and release you from the show, and I'm going to close out the show thanking everybody for listening in once again to our webinar, Protecting the Vision, sponsored by the National Optometric Foundation in collaboration with the National Optometric Association. We're so thankful for our donors and sponsors coming in, supporting us, coming alongside, allowing us to be the financial arm of the National Optometric Association, and allowing us to be able to mentor and support young minds who are thinking about becoming an optometrist. They're currently in optometry school, thinking about going to optometry school. We support them, try to get them to the National Optometric Association convention, which is coming up in July in Florida. So if you're not registered, please do go to the National Optometric Association website and get registered for the convention. We have a website that you can follow us so that you can continue to follow what we're doing in communities and learn more about us at the www.nationaloptometricfoundation.com. We would love for you to also go and subscribe to our YouTube channel that we also have set up under the same name, National Optometric Foundation. We also like for you to go and like our Facebook page. On Facebook, we post information from time to time, and we tell you about these great webinars that's coming up there as well. And in order for us to continue to do the great things, if you would like to support us, we do have a Cash App called $Protecting the Vision, where you can go and support us tonight. And remember, I'll match anyone who's given a $25 donation tonight to the National Optometric Foundation. I am the treasurer and board member for the National Optometric Foundation. It is my pleasure to serve the communities and work alongside with some great optometrists on the board. And we welcome you to our next webinar, which will be the third Monday, 7 p.m. in the month of June. There again, we'll have a different speaker, a different topic, and you'll get to learn all about different things there. You know, the National Optometric Foundation, along with the association, want to help underrepresented minority communities and let you know about those 3 silent killers: glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, and hypertensive retinopathy. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you on our next webinar, and hope you have a great evening.